Well, the Prime Minister reached some key agreements this weekend with US President Joe Biden and our Quad partners in a truncated Quad meeting on the sidelines of the G7 in Hiroshima. Issues including security of submarine cables, infrastructure and training were discussed. Let's bring in to discuss this and the rest of the day's big stories Sky News host and Daily Telegraph political editor James Morrow. James, great to see you. Look, one of the main outcomes of the discussions over the weekend were climate and energy deal secured by Joe Biden with Australia. Look, this has been hailed by Labor as an opportunity for Australia's hydrogen and minerals industries. Joe Biden has said it's now the third pillar of the US-Australia alliance. How will the country benefit from this?
Well, look, I think we should be a little bit careful before we get too ahead of ourselves on this. And by the way, great editorial just there on the New South Wales Police, Sharri.
Thank you, James.
As far as this whole third pillar is concerned, all this is doing is trying to correct a problem where Australian capital is going to start flowing to the United States to take advantage of American government handouts in America, and now it just means they'll be able to take advantage of them here. With this hydrogen stuff, it barely exists as a technology, a proven technology. With some of the critical mineral stuff, it is good, but also we have to be careful that this environmentalism doesn't wind up just becoming another route to kind of corporate featherbedding between government and corporations, which is where I frankly see this going.
Look, the opposition has warned Anthony Albanese against visiting Beijing until China has lifted all of the trade sanctions on Australia. What has been his response to this, James? And shouldn't one of the demands also be that China has released the Australians who are wrongfully imprisoned?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, people like Chung Lei, who has been in prison for, I think, 1,000 days, more than 1,000 days now on charges that we don't know anything about. It's all very well and good, Sharri, for trade relations to improve, and I'm glad to see that happening. But I would like to know also, is there any sort of quid pro quo happening here? Does this mean any sort of pulling back from freedom of movement exercises, freedom of navigation exercises in the South China Sea? I am watching this very carefully, and I think people should be wondering why exactly China is playing us such a nice hand of cards at the moment, and what the sting in that tail is going to be. Because, Sharri, we know there always is.
Look, it looks like there's a bit of a battle brewing between the building and mining industries, ready to challenge the Albanese government if it gives in to union pressure and includes self-employed workers in its second wave of industrial relations reforms. We've seen that industry groups are starting to criticise the government's consultation process. They're actually calling it deceptive. What do you think the outcome is going to be here?
Well, I hope that the government winds up pulling back from the second round of IR reforms, simply because it just is incoherent for a government that has all of these infrastructure projects on tap and this huge need to see housing built by both private and public sectors to make it more difficult for the building and construction industries to get things done. This is just simply not going to work to make life more inflexible for employers, for tradies, for everybody involved in actually putting up the buildings, the houses, putting together the infrastructure that the government is promising and says that we desperately need in the coming decade.